Good day everyone and welcome back to the dark side of the moon, otherwise known as a Warframe video. I've tried several ways of starting this video without making myself seem like I haven't just jumped on a bandwagon of memery, but as hard as I try, there is no way I'll be able to explain myself without as to why I decided to do this video, other than it's Twitch's fault. Twitch above us right here. Isn't that right, Twitch chat? This is all your fault, who are, in fact, joining us today to engage with this wonderful conversation we're about to have. But today, we're going to be making a tier list of all the frames, which ones I like, which ones I don't like, from my perspective, bear in mind. And they're going to be put in some arbitrary alphabetical order, ranking from best to worst. Keep in mind, some of these are going to be serious, some of them are going to be silly, and some of them are just going to be put in random places because F it. It's content, right? So don't take this video too seriously, but this does give some perspective as to where you can place certain frames. It's going to be kind of obvious which ones are satirical though, so keep that in mind. Keep in mind, again, that all of these rankings are my opinion, although I can guarantee someone has already disliked the video because they're a heretic and don't like top hats. So, let's start things off with Ashe. Ashe, oh Ashe. That versatile, lovely, stealthy frame with a very fascinating playstyle. Originally slated as being female, which makes me very curious as to why they changed her to be male. But either way, sex aside, Ashe is a fantastic frame with stealth utility and quite a fun playstyle, which helps him rank up in the abilities of just general enjoyment, if nothing else. Ashe, unfortunately, is a little bit of a weird one as well. He is really obnoxious to obtain coming from the Manics, and unless you really specifically want him for his augments or his stealth capabilities, there are a lot of frames out there that just what he does and better, so I don't know. He's one of those kind of frames that you either love or you hate. So we're going to be putting Ashe in the D, because honestly, unless you put a lot of time and effort into him, he just sucks a lot of D. Getting him is the pain that kind of puts him down in the D ranking though. But hey, first frame in the D, right there. And then on to Atlas. Atlas, the man of rocks, the man of power, the man of fisting. This wonderful frame, this beautiful boy, is filled with rock-solid determination. And to be fair, it's quite a simplistic frame, and let's face it, there's nothing more satisfying than running around with immunity frames between each punch and punching the crap out of anything that comes before you. By the way, I better put my swears in now, otherwise that new rule coming in about children's content's probably going to copyright strike this already, so balls, fuck, piss, bollocks. There we go. Now I'll get monetized. So yes, Atlas, fantastic frame, great to play. Only real downside, he's kind of clunky. He doesn't really flow that well other than in his punching, and you won't really ever use his other abilities. But hey, he's good at punching, and if you mod power strength, he'll be very powerful in what he does. So, you know, Atlas, however, he is one of my favorites, mostly because if you want to be immortal and punch things and to death without dying yourself, there is no better choice. So we're going to put Atlas in Kobe in B. Then we got Banshee, the queen of AoE, the buxom babe of fancy skins, the frame that has very lackluster flow and feels like you're wading through mud when you cast any of her abilities. Although she does have a lot of utility and functionality, she is, in theory, one of the lesser enjoyed frames at the moment because she just hasn't kept up with the times. You can imagine a grey wig on her and making her look like an old fogey. She's good, but she ain't no spring chicken. We're putting her in the E category. But we're actually going to bring her up to D because most people want to give her the D. But when she gets a rework, she'll be much better. So she's going to be in the D category for the time being. Anyway, yes. Now on to Baruch. Baruch is one of my favorite frames, but just because he's my favorite doesn't mean he's going to score highly. But what's good about him? He's got good damage, he's very versatile, he's got a bit of crowd control, he's good at surviving, he's a bit of a pacifist. So, you know, if you've ever wanted to embody the idea of a pacifist run, Baruch is definitely the one you would do it with. With his Fists of Fury and potent exalted weapon, he's really quite strong. The only downside is he lacks any real flow because it requires you to actually build him up to get to that level of potency. But this is my list, and I like him a lot. He's one of my mains, and I've fashion framed him like a champion, so Baruch is going in the B. You know, if I put every frame into the category that their name starts with, letter their name starts with, this is going to get very obvious and very boring very quickly. Moving on to Chroma, one of the core foundations of Warframe's frames. Chroma is an inevitable factor that you will run into when you do Eidolon runs with his unbelievable tankiness and power from his buffs. He is a staple for Eidolons, although unfortunately he is boring. People will literally only use him for his buff, and that is an unfortunate side factor, but for sheer functionality and utility alone of having him worthwhile using for solo missions and just buffing in general, for what he does do, he's very powerful at it. So we're going to put Chroma in the A category, even if he is dull as a sack of bricks to play. Ember sets the world on fire, has had a recent rework that's made that even more potent, and unfortunately she has lost her ability that was called World on Fire, but she has awesome augments, she's good for damage, she's basically the introductory DPS caster frame you'll be introduced to initially to get used to how to do damage as a caster frame. So, although Twitch chat want to put her in A, I'm going to put her in S, because there's nothing more satisfying than setting the world on fire, and let's face it, she has some of the nicest skins in the game, if I do say so myself. Equinox. She's versatile. She's got 2 forms for double the fun. She supports, she damages, she's got slash-based damage, which is even better. She's great for focus farming and has really funky augments that really make her playstyle much more versatile. The only downside is she's confusing as balls to play, and her farming is basically the equivalent of farming 2 separate frames into themselves. But because of her utility and synergy with other setups, we're going to put her into the A ranking because she is a fine choice to use for farming, she's a fine choice for DPS, and you can, if you so choose, play her like you would play Mercy from Overwatch, in case you didn't get that reference. Excalibur! Simple, high power, lots of damage, low modding difficulty, and a very fun playstyle by dashing around like a super fancy ninja. He's also the poster boy, so you know you're going to look like a dashing, strapping ninja when you play this boy. Only downside is he's a bit too reliant on modding and doesn't really offer much learning potential because you just basically rely on his pure elements of damage. But beyond that, Excalibur is going to be in the A rank because he does make a beginner's life much easier for those who pick up the game. He is one of your first choices. If you want to make life easy, he would be your go-to choice on that starter screen. So, up into the A he goes. Frost, similar to Ember, only on the complete opposite because fire and ice. Frost is kind of like the introductory frame you get used to when you're trying to learn utility. He's good for team compositional value, for holding down locations, slowing enemies down, making them feel like they need to wear a jacket around him because he's so frigid. On the bad side, he does make you need to invest in a heater, and I'm poor right now because I just got a tax bill. And he's also very linear to play, so, you know, you kind of play him for the reason he's designed, which is kind of cool. But sometimes simplicity does offer a functional way of playing. So, I don't know. I think we'll just put Frost in the C category because he's kind of like the middle road of enjoyment and satisfying whilst also being dull as a sack of bricks. Garuda, that frame that basically ruined all sense of potential lore we would ever get in Warframe. Covered in blood, flows lovely, has a great look, especially with those... Anyway, Garuda is a team frame. She has healing capabilities, she's got some crowd control, she can execute enemies when they're below 35% health, which is a very rare thing to find in frames these days, where you get a literal execute mechanic. The only downside is... yeah, she's, looks like you've just had a bit of a bad day at the office and decided to take out your stress on your teammates. Alas, because she is very all over the place with her playstyle and just general feel, we're going to put her in the F category. I like her, but I wouldn't play her because she just isn't that easily playable, especially for new players. I put this in the wrong order, but Gara! Gara is great! Gara is a frame you get very early in the game, which adds up the points. Gara can allow you to lock down areas for great defense, has infinite scalability with her lovely ice shards that flow around her that scale based on your abilities, and she's very simplistic as well. She doesn't necessarily even need that much modding to make her powerful, which is fantastic. Although, because of this simplicity, she is rather boring, but if you like fancy glass frames and a frame that can help carry you through missions and give you lots of damage mitigation, then she's the one for you. We're going to put Gara in the A because she's convenient, she's simple, although just a little bit boring. She might even gotten up in the S rank due to that infinite scalability, but hey ho, there you go. It's my ranking and I decide where they go. Gauss, he's fast as fuck, boy. like that dank meme. See, I'm hip with the kids. Gauss has some very interesting damage and crowd control mechanics. And to be fair, even though you don't see many people playing him because he's convoluted as all hell to get, he's a very fascinating frame, and what's more satisfying than being able to run at Mark 10, knocking people over, and having some very interesting combination of abilities. Even though a lot of people don't really appreciate the way he plays, he does have very interesting ways of doing crowd control and damage. But the trouble being is, he's just not that fun to farm for, and he just doesn't really seem to fit in with the playstyle of most Warframes. So, unfortunately, we're going to put Gauss down in the E category. I'm pretty sure anyone can agree with this. He's fun, but that's literally about it. So he is our first E. See? More dank memes. Hildren. So Hildren is a rather unique frame, as she's one of the only frames in the game that actually has shields that allow for scalability and mitigation. Well, kind of mitigation. She has some rather nice damage from her exalted weapon with her particle cannon thingy. She flies around, she's good for team support, she can buff your allies, she can debuff the enemies, strip shields and buff her own. And with certain augments and modding, she can in theory be almost immortal. The only real downside is that you need to fight the Exploiter Orb to get her, which requires you to farm Thermia. And on top of that, to actually get that immortality, you need to have a very different mentality towards your modding semantics. But what's more fun than flying around like a helicopter? So we're going to put her into the B category, because I would like to be between her thighs. This isn't helping my cause here, is it? Now for Harrow. Harrow is very strong. I mean, there's not much that needs to be said more than that, but Harrow gives great buffs. He gives immunity to your team. He's a team player. And when you're thinking of Eidolons, there is no better frame to take with you. He is always a good choice. Although, unfortunately, he is narrowly put into that category of being a utility frame, he doesn't really, unfortunately, have much output for killing enemies himself. He has some half-decent crowd control, but if you want support frame, he is fantastic, and he looks really good as well. The only bad side is, again, he doesn't do much else. Because he's a bit of a middle-of-the-road kind of frame, we're going to put him sort of between B and C, because he's a bit between everything, you know what I mean? It's just... This ranking is going to get very messy very quickly. Now, time for Hydroid, that man of water, the tentacle master himself. Hydroid is basically kind of like Harrow in some respects. He is pure utility. He can do some rather nice amounts of damage, but it's very convoluted and rather annoying to actually get to that point of damage. Unless you use his tentacles, which will do a natural amount of damage themselves, but there's so much RNG to whether they hit an enemy or not. You know, I mean, good side, he's fun, he's got tentacles. The bad side, he's got tentacles and reminds you about that one hentai you watched. But maybe that's a good thing if you're into that kind of things. In terms of farming, though, we're going to put him up into the A category. Whether it reminds you of that hentai or not, he is basically a core foundation of farming frames. So because of that reason alone, when you really want those mutant samples, there is no better frame. So good old Hydroid goes into A. Inaros, the Master of Sand, the god of frames himself, that one that has probably one of the more interesting quest lines. And hey, that's actually a really good benefit. Inaros, I've always loved. I've had a deep appreciation for his questline. It was involved, it was deep. It made you feel like you were reading an episode of Twilight, except one that actually had a narrative. The only downside is he doesn't really do much more than just be there and survive. I mean, he can soak up a crud ton of damage, but he's not really going to do much more beyond that. So for a self-contained frame, for solo purposes, he'll be fantastic. So, I don't know, let's just put Inaros in C. Alright, we're going to do quickfire now. We're going for Ivara. Ivara is getting primed soon. Ivara has a lot of damage, a lot of potential, and potential is amazing, because when you have potential, you have depth of play, you have uniqueness. Although she is clunky for her stealth purposes, Ivara is fantastic. And what with her prime variant looking like a jellyfish, there is no better way. Unfortunately, we don't have a J rank, so she's got a nice ass, so we're gonna put her in A. God damn it. Why is everything going to A with a good ass? Now on to Cora. Cora is a very weird frame, but weirdly enough, when you get used to her general ideology, she's actually pretty straightforward. Not to mention she comes with a pet, and women that come with pets are usually the ones that you want to keep because you know that they have the capability to love you, baby. But in terms of functionality, she's got really funky damage from her Whip Claw, especially with the augment. She's got great crowd control from her Entangling Strangle Dome, which actually does a surprising amount of damage. For utility as well, having Pilfering Strangledome to add loot duplication. She's versatile. She's got damage. She is a little bit squishy. But Cora is amazing. We're going to put her in A. See? And that time I didn't even mention about the butt. Limbo. He's in A. He's in S. He's in S+. He's so high up the list. He's off the freaking chart, man. I mean, let's face it. Are you surprised? A frame that can stop time, a frame that can hold down a location with indefinite time stoppage. He wears a freaking top hat for criminy's sake. A freaking top hat. He's like above and beyond the S rank. He's so far out of the rift, he doesn't even exist on this time scale of a chart. Loki. Now, if I'd chosen this frame 3 years ago, he would have been S+, because he was fantastic at stealth, he could disarm enemies, and he could basically remain immortal due to being invisible all the time. But over time, there's been more frames that can do invisibility. We have Wukong now, who's the master of spy missions, and let's face it, Loki probably could do with a bit of an update and a retune to make him a bit more modern. So he's sort of fallen down the rankings, but if you've ever wanted to just do stealth, Loki is a perfect choice for that. He's very obviously about stealth. He's very obviously going to help you with stealth missions. If you want to play slow and steady and solo, Loki is perfect for that, but he doesn't really bring much else to the table. So simplicity, stealth versus just a bit of old age ingenuity. He's not going to score low. We're going to put him up in the B ranking because he's still BEA beautiful as a frame, especially for new players. Now we're going to look at Mag. We're going to put her up in the A rank. Why, do you ask? Why? Because although she requires very heavy modding to make her very powerful, when you get to that core value of her, when you get that potency, she has unbelievable damage scalability, especially when you synergize it with the weapons that you choose. Really, the only thing that brings her down is that she's a glass cannon, and you actually need to do a lot of understanding of modding and her synergy aspects to get that potency. But when you get it, whoo! Also, she's got some really nice skins, I'm just saying. Mesa, the gunslinger of all. Mesa is a high damage frame. She has some survivability through her abilities, she has some damage through her peacemakers, and has such versatility of modding that you can pretty much go with any way you want and not do badly. There's not really a bad thing you can say about Mesa, other than, well, possibly she could have a bit more crowd control, but when things are dead, you don't really need crowd control, do you? I think we're going to put Mesa up in the S rank because, let's face it, when you get Mesa, if you're looking for quick, clear damage, she is up there. Maybe a little bit below the S rank because she could definitely do with a little bit of crowd control, but some of her abilities are really funky and they really push damage even further. Maybe she gets shoehorned a little bit too heavily into relying on Peacemaker, but I love her, and I definitely would recommend giving her a try if you haven't already. Mirage. Oh, Mirage. Unfortunately, Mirage is not going to score highly, especially since patch 26. Before patch 26, she had a build with explosive legend main that made her the strongest AoE damaging crowd control damaging frame in the game using her explosive legend main build. Unfortunately, they've either stealth nerfed it or broken it, and we have to judge this based on her current stats. She's boring, she's dull, she's powerful, but she's very dull and boring. So her strengths are she's powerful and dull, but her weakness is she's powerful and dull. So, for the time being, until they fix her, we're going to put her in D. Because, damn, what a shame. Nekros is one of the first frames you will be told about when you want to learn how to farm things in Warframe. Even with very subpar modding, he can do that farming process very efficiently. And if you've ever wanted to learn how, check out my guide. Nekros has been led to believe that he has only one build, and that's for Despoil and Desecration. But in fact, he can be a good tank with a good Shadows build, and he actually has very good functionality in team compositions outside of just loot duplication. But through the process of loot duplication alone, you know, he would be an A rank, but because he does have those other survivability builds and everything else, we're going to push him up to S, because he is a core foundation of what allows people to get into Warframe and farm those resources better. Not all of these frames are going to be silly, I can guarantee you that. Nezha! Pretty far up there in the rankings, I'd say. especially since his rework. He's got flow, he's got sass, he's very good at what he does with crowd control, survivability. He's basically like the little brother of Rhino, and we all love Rhino, right? Only downside, his deluxe skin, and to be fair, his regular skin, makes me very much question my sexuality and this whole meme about him being a... Sorry, I can't even say this because I'll get banned from the public chat channels. Suffice it to say, he confuses my penis, but he is very fun, very flamboyant, has really nice deluxe skins, and also is actually very fun to play. And potent to that matter. Nidus! Now, it's safe to say Nidus is a very strong frame. He's got scalability through the stacking of his infested gunky stuff. He's got a great deal of crowd control from his 2 that can basically hoist people around like Hydroid's tentacles do, which makes you wonder about that one hentai you watched. You know what I'm talking about, Billy. I'm looking at you, you dirty perv. And then he has some healing and other additional utility to your team as well, and also is also spreading herpes, but that might be also a downside. So if it weren't for the fact that Nidus intentionally spreads herpes, I would put him up in the S rank. But because he spreads herpes and makes my frames look hideous with those cysts on their neck, we're going to put Nidus... I think we're going to put him at the A rank. I would put him in B, but I'm not going to lie, his Frike skin has a really good butt. So A's for ass, Nidus gets the ass point. Nova! Oh boy, Nova. This was one I was kind of looking forward to actually putting on this list because... Nova is a prime example of a frame that people underappreciate until they actually play her. When I first picked the game up, I thought she was a little bit and I had no real interest in her. I saw people using her and then for wondering why things were speeding up and slowing down, but Nova brings to the table one of the most unique abilities in the entire game. She can literally control the speed of the enemy. The only downside with this being is you need to understand the potency of minus power strength, and so as far as new players go, this might be a little bit convoluted and a bit weird to actually get that understanding through your head, and realizing that the distance your molecular prime actually travels is based on your duration, not your range, which when you think about it, you think the range in which you travel is based on range, not duration, but that's just another semantic that kind of goes into why it's not as easy to learn her as you might think. But she does have some really good skins. She has some interesting damage potential as well from her other abilities, and she also has weird tank abilities as well with her stars that float around. I completely forgot the name of them because I'm a professional streamer. She has survivability. She's got crowd control. She even lets enemies explode all over you, and some of the skins are really nice too, just saying. So I'm actually going to put her up in there in the S factor, because she covers every element you could possibly want. She encourages dynamic play, and as a new player, you're going to want to try and get as good as you can with her. And sometimes having that emphasis of learning and encouraging the process of learning really pushes a frame up there in terms of my appreciation of it. And again, this is my appreciation, and when you got all the assets including learning factors, then you kind of can't go anywhere else. Nyx is up in the S rank. No, wait, I lied. Sorry, she's down in F. You want to know why? She's got no ass. Like, when I look at a frame, I want to be looking at something that's nice and gonna wiggle and gonna make me appreciate the charm of the character. She's, even after 3 reworks, she's also dull as a sack of bricks and really boring to play. She can have some potency, but without an ass, she would maybe... If she had an ass, she might be in the E, maybe D rankings. But even after reworks and not having an ass, unfortunately, F. Oberon, the goat, deer, forest creature frame. I'm very confused by the amount of Rule 34 I've seen of this character, so that instantly puts this character up in the S ranking. But Oberon as a frame is very versatile. He's a paladin, if you will. I have had a great deal of fun learning Oberon. He has healing, he has utility, he can even pump out damage, and is a good substitute for Eidolons. The only downside, and what seems to be the normal case with frames like this, there's a lot of complexity, but with Oberon's complexity, it's something that's actually quite satisfying to learn, and doesn't require that much depth of learning to actually get used to. For the sake of how much compositional value he brings, as well as some crowd control, some damage, and everything else like that, we're going to put him up there in the B rankings. Octavia. Octavia is a rather fascinating frame. She's one of the more unique ones out there. She has infinite scalability, even though DE seem to be completely opposed to scalability at the moment. She has high amounts of power, high amounts of damage. Her quest is probably one of the best in the game. The only downside is she keeps me up at night with her constant berating of dubstep out of her speakers. And I want to sleep at night. And sometimes a man just wants to sleep without listening to some weeaboo anime music blaring out of from speakers that exist on your shins. For functionality, she's an A. She's an absolute A. She's a bit weird to understand and requires you to basically constantly press your buttons and not realize where you're actually doing your damage. But she's fun. She's intuitive, she's got flow, and you can play your favorite anime song tunes out of her shins. So A is where she'll be. And now we're looking at Revenant. In the comments below, can we please have a conversation about why Revenant is the worst frame in the game other than Grendel and why he even exists at this point? I mean, I know he's powerful, I know he's got potency, but my God, I can't name a single person I know who plays him unironically. So, the reason being is because Revenant is confusing. Since his existence, he had one of the most blasé questlines in existence, and as a frame, the only thing you're ever going to really do with him is spin in a circle like a dainty ballerina, which can be powerful, and he can be durable. But why bother when there's things like Rhino and Inaros that do everything he does and better? I mean, I do like being a dainty ballerina princess, but no. E! Rhino is the next frame for the list. Rhino, where are you going to go, I wonder? Well, let's face it. Rhino is one of the earlier frames you get in the game. He's powerful, he's tanky, he's got abilities that really encourage new player existence and gives new players that little crutch they need to hobble on whilst they start experiencing their first experiences of Warframe. I mean, most of the time, at least, unless you ignore Fossa. I mean, the fact you get him so early in the game is really encouraging for a new player to just pick him up, give him a try, and then realize how powerful and surviving he can be. His only downside is he's boring. He is dull as a sack of bricks. And he doesn't encourage learning. Sometimes he will even make it so that you rely on him too much, because his ability to be immortal through Iron Skin will basically take you through the entire star chart. And then when you get to content where you actually need to do better, well, all of a sudden, your Iron Skin no longer holds up and you die horribly. And then you're like, gee willikers, Batman. I sure wish I'd tried learning them other frames I'd passed on the way. So, unfortunately, Rhino's gonna go in the B category, because he's great, but you gotta expand off of him. Seren. Now, I was actually going to score Seren really stupidly high for this video due to her infinite scalability, but for some bizarre reason, DE seemed to be in the mindset of nerfing all of our fun, because apparently we're not allowed to have fun anymore. As of this video, about a day or two back, Pablo, in his infinite wisdom, decided to speak on stream saying that they're possibly going to be nerfing the rate her spores scale. In terms of direct functionality, she's very powerful. She does have infinite scalability, she's got huge power, she's toxin, she looks nice, and she's great fun. Maybe a little bit of a glass cannon syndrome, but in terms of her general functionality, she is fantastic. Bit of a pain in the ass to farm from Talregor? Is that? No, Killer the Thame, sorry, Killer the Thame. From that perspective, she's fantastic. And as she is right now, she is really lovely. She does wonderfully in every mission. Her spores will allow you to do huge amounts of damage. She has versatility in builds. In fact, to me, you could have 6 different Sarens, each with different builds, and you would still not have enough Sarens to have all the builds you could possibly have. So you could rely on your whip, you can rely on your spores, you can use miasma to crowd control and do more damage and help spread your spores. But with the change coming, it makes me a little bit worried. I was going to put Seren in the A category, but I'm going to have to put her into the B category until we know more about whether that rework will come through or not. If it doesn't, she can go back up in the A category. But for now, she'll be in B, because butts. Trinity, one of the only purely support frames in the game. There is nothing harmful about Trinity. She does have kind of some damaging aspects about her, I guess, but Trinity is the be-all and end-all of mercy frames within the game. If you've ever wanted your purest of healers, she would be it. She has the versatility in her build. She can be a shield-focused, an energy-focused Trinity with an EV build. She can focus on pure blessing builds. And to be fair, no matter what team she goes into, she's always going to be a very loved frame, because who doesn't love having a massive blessing on them that reduces all damage? So, no surprise, we're going to put Trinity in the S category because, well, if you want to play a healer, who else are you going to play? The only downside with her is that she comes from the ambulances, and for a new player, those things are daunting as all hell. But suffice it to say, she is a loved frame. We all like her. Unfortunately, she might get a rework due to DE's mentality at some point, but healing's always good, and the compositional value she brings is always nice. It's very simple to get into that level of healing as well. Valkyr! Coming on to the last few frames now. Valkyr is a fantastic frame. She is very early in the star chart. She is crazy kooky lady. She friggin' tears people to bits, and her prime access, her prime trailer back in the day was fantastic. She also has a rather nice posture and has stupidly high levels of power. In fact, she has, in my eyes, one of the highest power scalings of any exalted weapon in the game, especially when you try and synergize her exalted weapon with her Warcry builds. And although people say that she's boring, I would counter that and say that she just requires a finer understanding of how to synergize. You can either play it in a bog standard way and get the raw brunt element of damage out of her, or you can put some time and effort in and get a much more versatile, unique, higher damage potency build out of her. Unfortunately, I don't like being woken up to half through the night with some crazy lady clawing at my chest as to why I didn't pay her rent. So, just because I'm scared for my own life, we're going to put her in S, because I feel like if I put her anywhere else, she's going to appear at my door with a jar of butter going, "Are you ready?" And I'm scared, and I don't want that to happen, so she's going to be an S. Vauban! Yes, good old Vauban. If this video would have been made about 4 months ago, Vauban would be, well, is there anything below F? Vauban, unfortunately, was a victim of time. He did not advance along with the rest of the frames, and having only been a crowd control frame at that point, he was very lackluster. But DE have worked their magic and reworked him so that now he can do damage, he can do crowd control. He's a bit of a glass cannon still, but his flechettes are quite pokey, his new balls are really nice. He juggles! He gives you entertainment! Not only do you get a frame that can crowd control and vortex and suck people into black holes, he juggles for you! Are you not entertained? So Vauban goes up in A, because who else doesn't like calling down an orbital strike while juggling balls and fondling balls and... I might put him in B at this, right? Because they're all the balls, but A! A for that man! And Vault. Vaulty, Vaulty, Vault. One of those lovely starter frames. Now, I'm just going to put this out there. Vault is going to score highly regardless. He's a starter frame. Even if you don't get him initially, he's so dirt cheap for platinum. It costs 75 platinum. You can make him dirt easily as well. As a new player perspective frame, he's fantastic. He offers a little bit more complexity of play than Excalibur would, but not quite as complicated as Mag would be. So for a new player, he offers a challenge. He gives great utility in the form of crowd control. You can run fast as F-Boy, and you can also have some decency in builds. Not to mention he is a core asset of Eidolon runs as well. So because he's so versatile, because he's so useful, he's going to go right up in the S category. And if you haven't played him yet, you might want to, otherwise you'll be shocked by the result. Now, this next one is either going to go very sensibly or very stupidly. So, Wisp is a frame that has a Kamehameha, can summon friends in the form of motes that buff your allies, can teleport herself across great distances. So in all retrospect, this frame should be really high up that ranking. But then we remember that it comes all the way down because you got to farm the Roper list. She's also very convoluted to play. But she's got a really nice ass, so instantly up into the A category. Woohoo! And let's face it, you guys knew this one was going to be silly. I was going to be no way in hell taking this one seriously in the slightest. Damn, I love me some Wisp.
A is for ass, oh ass that you eat, and B is for booty that you found on the street. C is for silly, let's get silly with me. D is for don't give the dick, oh please, cause that booty's gonna need it.
Wukong is one of the more recent frames to get a rework, and let's face it, the rework, although some people were like, but I like my old Wukong, the Wukong rework is fantastic. I think that the rework has made him much more versatile. It's given you the ability of having your own friend, so if you're like me and you have no friends in real life, you can create your own and have conversations with a clone of yourself. You also have the ability of using your 2, which allows you to travel at great distances without getting detected, which actually is the reason why Wukong is now one of the best spy frames in the game. He's fast, he's got a powerful exalted weapon, and he's a monkey! You can play a monkey in this game. And, well, I mean, if you believe by the mythos at least. So, for the simple fact that Wukong is fantastic, chunky, and very powerful, he's going to go straight in the B category. Yeah, the Abe category. Yep, that's where he's going to go. I'm not going to try and correct that in post-production at all. And finally, we are on to Zephyr, the final frame in the list. You're going to be very surprised where I'm going to put this frame. Top 20 Warframe streamers are surprised where Zephyr ends on Makari's list. Click this button to find out more. Zephyr goes in A. Why? Well, let me tell you. Zephyr can be a tanky butt frame. She is incredibly tanky. She can be immortal with a good turbulence build. Secondly, she's fun. She is fun. Like, holy crud, she is fun. And let's face it, the reason why we make this tier list and why we play frames is to enjoy ourselves. There's nothing more satisfying than being immortal, darting all over the map without any heed for objects being in your way, and let's face it, she has some half-decent crowd control from her 4 as well. Yes, she may be a little bit weird, but I think she doesn't get enough love from the fact just how versatile and weird she can be. And sometimes you need to play a frame that takes you outside of your comfort zone. Things like Zephyr are that exact kind of frame. You can get a lot of potency out of her, and her augments really help excel that. I know you were hoping this one would be down in the F list, but she's also got a really nice butt if you look under the under the flaps, but you know, that's just a thing. So yeah, Zephyr's going right up there. We're gonna have her up in the top list of things. And Titania. This is gonna seem a bit weird because I accidentally forgot to do her, so she's actually gonna appear at the end after I said Zephyr was the last one. But in fact, Titania is in there. I promise. Titania is just straight up a C frame, maybe a B to some people. I love Titania. She's very powerful at damage. She can be a pixie. She can do insane amounts of damage. The trouble being is, she's a bit dull. She is quite dull. Once you get over the novelty of being a dainty pixie princess that does a lot of damage, that's really all there is to her. You never really make use of any of your other abilities, and again, once you get past the novelty of having high damage as a pixie, there's not much else to her. They've tried making her stronger, they've tried doing more with her. I like her. I play her, especially when I want to do damage. But beyond that, there's just not much else to her. So unfortunately, Titania goes straight in the middle. She's not terrible, she's not great, but she's fun. And that's the list. Let me know down in the comments whether you agreed or disagreed, because I can imagine a lot of you would have disagreed with me. The way I chose these frames and the way I put them up there, it's satirical, it's humor, it's meant to be a bit of a laugh. There is some premise of correctness to this, though. The idea of how we choose Warframes is always a very relevant and interesting concept, as when you think about it, there is no wrong answer. Warframe being a casual, new player-friendly game, there is no real wrong answer, because every frame can do all of the content if you so choose. It just depends on how you mod it, and it depends how you want to approach the content you do, because frames are nothing more than play style. So when you see somebody in the game that's enjoying a frame and you think it's a terrible frame, don't be that one guy that tells them they're playing a bad frame, because there are no bad frames. Frames are like our opinions. They change with the weather. And I know I said I wanted to make this a satirical, funny video, but this is a very relevant subject that I'm very passionate about. Every frame can be fun. We all play Warframe the way we want to, and we should all play the way we find fun. Just because you personally don't find something fun does not mean it's bad. And as much as I make a joke about the way I did this list, we're here for fun. Warframe is a fun, free-to-play game, and I want us all to enjoy it the best way we can. So if you see a frame that you really want to play, even if I've ranked it low, go play it. You might be surprised just how much fun you might have with that frame. So guys, if you have enjoyed this video, do make sure you leave a like, share it to your friends, maybe subscribe as well. We've just hit 15,000 subs. Yes! And if you want to join us, I record these on Twitch. So if you want to join our fellow Twitch chat up here, say hi, Twitch chat. You can do. I will leave a link down in the description below so you can join us if you wish. We generally stream every single day. And I promise you, we will be returning to our more informative videos in the near future with Grendel Guide. Oh, God, I feel dirty just saying that. We'll also be doing things where we rework some of the older videos, seeing as we've sort of advanced our process of how we do these now, and I feel like it'd be deserving to rework some of those. Obviously, this might end up being a bit of a longer video as well, so I do apologize about that. But if you are enjoying the content, let me know. Let me know what you thought about my decisions on the frames, because there was some seriousness to them, and those are my legitimate opinions on some of these frames, even about the butts. So do leave a like, Share your friends, do that stuff, do all the relevant things that make YouTube algorithm happy, and I will hopefully see all of you top hatters either on Twitch or in the next video. Ta-ra! We did it!